cases Arc enable, and how it will help bridge Bitcoin's chasm. Please welcome to the stage Kilian from Boltz.
Thank you. So yeah, my name is Kilian. I'm with Boltz, and let's give it some time for the slides to pull up. Today I want to talk about Arc, and Arc especially in combination with Lightning. So who of you has heard about Arc, so that I have a feel of who knows about Arc? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's not too bad. But by the way, do I have a clicker? Yeah. So, why Arc? So there are two questions that I want to answer today. The first one is, why Arc? And why now? So obviously, Arc is a scaling solution in the broader sense of the term. And why Arc is even out there is to scale Bitcoin. Right now, the main chain is pretty calm. We were even eating through the 1 sat per VByte transaction band recently, so things are pretty calm. So in these kind of times, we tend to forget that we actually still need to scale Bitcoin. But we all now know that this is for now. We all know that the wild times will be back. It might be some new minting going on. It might be some new use case that is being deployed directly in the Bitcoin main chain, where we need a scaling solution more than ever. Let me talk about Arc and liquidity. So Arc has a very unique way of treating liquidity, especially if you compare it to Lightning. So Arc puts the liquidity management inherently with the end user in Lightning onto the service provider, onto the Arc service provider, the ASP. And this, in my opinion, is the correct thing to do. And in Lightning, we came up with, in my opinion, a little bit of a clunky workaround to that problem with the introduction of LSPs, with liquidity service providers, manage the liquidity on users' behalf on Lightning. But again, this is not native to Lightning. This is an external service provider that is actually taking care of this for you. This is not supposed to be a technical talk, but here a primer on what Arc actually is and how it functions. Users deposit their UTXOs within an Arc, with an Arc service provider. And in exchange, they get a so-called VTXO, a virtual transaction output. And how Arc works, putting it very simple, is that Arc matches users' VTXOs, the transactions that users do with their VTXOs, into so-called rounds and puts them onto the Bitcoin blockchain. Yeah? It's a batching mechanism. Most scaling solutions work like that. But the very unique and very different thing with Arc is, and that's very different from a blockchain, is the more transactions you have, the better it is, the cheaper it gets for everyone. And this is where Arc shines. Here, for the first time, actually, you are saving more and everything works smoother the more transactions are there and participating in a round. ¿Tenemos otro micro? ¿Otro micro? ¿No hay? And while there are out-of-round transactions possible in Lightning, meaning you do not need to wait for your transaction to be included in a round, while that is possible, and you can even chain them together, have like a state chain of out-of-round transactions, how they're called. The trust assumptions, then they change. And it's pretty much, you can compare it to zero-conf on regular blockchains. So what you really want is your transaction in the end to be included in a round so that you have all the trustless properties of ARC. But not everything is beautiful, as we just learned. It is only trustless if a transaction was included in a round. And rounds, especially in the beginning, will be slow. So we are talking here 1 round per day, 1 round every 12 hours or even 6 hours. That is the kind of frequency that we can expect from ARC rounds to happen, especially in the initial phase. But even if the demand for ARC goes through the roof and there will be more rounds happening, they're inherently limited by the Bitcoin block time. So there cannot be more rounds. They can only happen with the same frequency than the Bitcoin blocks. And also, another problem that ARC is facing is the liveliness requirement. So we have to assume that ARC will have to operate without covenants. This is the crucial thing that ARC needs in order to function smoother. But we should only focus and think about ARC without covenants as it is today. And for this, all senders need to be online. So this is basically the same assumptions than on the Lightning Network itself, where the sender and the receiver have to be online in order to transact. So, knowing the good and the bad about ARC, why do we need ARC now? Because of Lightning. Lightning is awesome. And Lightning is here to stay because it has unique properties that we all need and that only Lightning can deliver. It has fast transactions, usually within a couple of seconds. They reach their destination, sometimes a bit slower. But very importantly, Lightning transactions are instantly final. And that's what makes them very suitable for the merchant use case. Buying your beer, buying your Jamaica, buying your food here out in the truck only makes sense with a payment system and where the transaction is really final after it reached the destination. So there's no worries about, chargeback risk and all what the traditional credit card payments do have. And Lightning, right now, I think it changed quite drastically from what we initially envisioned how Lightning will be. So Lightning, in my opinion, is in full swing to become a professional network, to become a network of professional Lightning node operators. And in this sense, it matches ARC pretty well because, as we just have learned, because of the liveliness requirements, all parties need to be online. It matches the profile of a Lightning node operator, matches the profile of an ARC node operator as well. ARC is not for the end user. Lightning in the future is not for the end user. I have the strong personal opinion that the time where we all run our little personal nodes onto our phones will come to an end, and we will use Lightning in a different way. And what is very special about Lightning is, and where it struggles the most with, is the liquidity management. So in order for every merchant here at the conference to reliably accept payments, the merchant needs to rebalance channels, because Lightning only really shines so far when the payment flows is somewhat balanced, meaning the same amount goes back and forth all the time. If the payment flow in Lightning is unidirectional, it only goes one direction, like it is basically the case for all merchants here, one needs to rebalance their channels. But that should not be a problem. I think we have to accept the fact that rebalancing will not go away. Rebalancing is here to stay. But rather, we should think about how to include rebalancing into the technical stack of Lightning and make it part of Lightning. And not like right now, where we try to do everything to avoid rebalancing and avoid especially submarine swap-based rebalancing transactions. I think we should not try to do that, and we should embrace it. We should embrace rebalancing as and on-chain footprint, like rebalancing transactions, as a native part of Lightning. How do we do that? Well, first, what I want to get across is that I do not want that the same that happened to Lightning over the past years is now happening to ARC, and that is overselling it. So ARC is not the Bitcoin scaling solution, the same way Lightning is not the Bitcoin scaling solutions. And we should highlight the trade-offs that ARC makes and be very vocal about it and talk about the bad things and the use cases that ARC is just not a fit for. And I also think we should focus on covenant-less ARC only. We all want covenants, I guess, or most of us want covenants. We might not agree in which way and which opcode and all that, and we definitely do not know if and when we will get them. So right now what we should do is, we know there is a version of ARC that works without covenants, so let's take that one and focus on it with all its trade-offs. And that brings the realization that ARC is for professionals, the same way Lightning is on the way to be for professionals. So, how do we start? How do we get all this going? The first step is to use ARC as a rail for rebalancing via the only way that has proven to work in all these years with Lightning, via the so-called submarine swap rebalancing method. You send out Lightning, and right now you get an on-chain payment back. This is how you balance your channel. So I'm proposing to start off doing the same thing, but with ARC. You send out Lightning, you get an ARC VTXO transaction back in exchange. And this is something we came up with when we integrated the liquid sidechain in Boltz as a rebalancing method. The same concept applies to ARC as well. You may call it the ARC rebalancing triangle. So you start with Lightning. You usually are looking for inbound liquidity. You're sending out Lightning and do an ARC swap to get your VTXO back. You do that again and again and again and again, but at some point you accumulated enough funds in ARC and need to exit the ARC. And you do that either via native methods or you do it via another ARC swap from ARC back to the Bitcoin main chain. And then you have Bitcoin main chain again, and you can continue using it like you used to do before, open channels and do more. So this is the first step, how we get the usage of ARC off the ground and integrate it into the Lightning ecosystem. But for me, the next logical step is Lightning on ARC. Let that sit for a second. What does it mean? It means we are treating ARC as the new base layer of Lightning. We natively integrate rebalancing transactions into Lightning. We do not try to avoid them anymore. We do not try to tune inbound and outbound fees to incentivize flow in certain directions to keep our channel balances. No. We use the only thing that works, and that is rebalancing via submarine swaps. And why do we do that? Because if a Lightning channel runs on ARC, the more rebalancing transactions happen, and the more people use rebalancing transactions and join you around in ARC, the cheaper it gets. And that's exactly the opposite of what is the case right now when you use the Bitcoin main chain as a rebalancing tool, or any blockchain for that case. Because when any blockchain, the more transactions compete to get into a block, the more expensive it gets. So the last point wants to say, and all that works out and checks out because I strongly believe the profile of the entities operating a Lightning node very much match the profile of the entities operating an ARC node. So we as a professional Lightning node operator will have no troubles in running an ARC node and making all this happen. To put it visually, this is the stack that I want to see happening and I believe makes sense to be happening. We have Bitcoin as the layer 1. We have ARC as a true layer 2 with unilateral exit, with everything, with all properties that a layer 2 needs to fulfill. And then we move Lightning one layer up as a layer 3. One problem remains. ARCs are a confined space. That means if I have Lightning running on ARC, it is running within one specific ARC. But we all imagine the future where there's not only one ARC, but multiple. So how can now a user using Lightning on one ARC pay a user on another ARC by connecting them with Lightning bridge nodes? So this concept is already out there since a while, and it was, the idea came up with the Liquid network, and actually there's an implementation of Core Lightning Live that basically does exactly this. So it's a Lightning node that has 2 chain backends, that has Bitcoin Core, and in that case, ARC, and that has channels, it operates channels on one ARC and also on another ARC. So basically, this node connects and can route payments from one ARC to another ARC. And of course, not only between ARCs, but also to the Bitcoin main chain. So we have to be realistic. The existing Lightning network that we have today on the main chain will not disappear. It will continue to be there, and there will be a lot of hobbyists and, more people running it. So these bridge nodes will be the crucial connection of the Lightning network on ARC with the main chain, with other ARCs, and maybe alternative networks like the Liquid network too. And this one, take this with a grain of salt. I'm very biased, obviously. The question that remains is, so how about us? How about the regular John Doe, the regular users? How are they using this professional Lightning network? And my answer to that question is via swaps from other layers. So this principle was initially heralded by Moon Wallet. Now it's been taken to the next level with Agua, Bull Bitcoin, and so on, that take a different approach to Lightning by not running a Lightning node directly, but actually using a professional provider via swaps. And this is how I see the Lightning network and also the Lightning network on ARC to be used by end users. It remains fully non-custodial, and none of the Lightning issues inbound liquidity, all of that will be abstracted away to a professional operator that knows how to do these things. My slide disappeared. Well, let's conclude with a TLDR. Lightning is awesome. Lightning is not replaceable. It features instantly final transactions. That is so unique that probably no other technology can deliver that than Lightning, aka payment channels. We need that. ARC and Lightning are not competing, and ARC and Lightning are for professionals. ARC is not the solution, not the scaling solution for Bitcoin because of the trade-offs we have seen. ARC, in my opinion, is not suitable to execute payments directly. But the properties of ARC make it a fitting new base to put Lightning on top. And probably not only Lightning, but even more. That's my talk so far, so now I'm ready to take some questions, probably criticism, and just tell me what you think about this idea that I just pitched. You're asking how it exactly works for regular users to use the Lightning Network. Okay, so the idea is that they do not directly touch any of this. This is all in the hands of the professional operators like Boltz, like others in future. And what they hold is some sort of Bitcoin, a representation of Bitcoin, probably not the main chain, probably on some layer 2. Or on some side chain like Liquid. So the example I can come up with now immediately is they could hold Bitcoin on the Liquid side chain or on the rootstock side chain or some sort of Bitcoin layer and then atomically swap for a Lightning payment. So what that means is instead of the user directly doing the Lightning payment, it enters into an atomic swap with a swap provider, basically send in the Liquid Bitcoin, and the swap provider itself sends out the Lightning payment for you. And that is atomically linked, and that's why it's trustless. Vice versa, when you're receiving Lightning, you're actually not receiving directly Lightning, but you're receiving into an atomic swap with a swap service provider. That is the idea. And that Bitcoin can be coming from anywhere. The only real requirement is that it is Bitcoin, meaning one-to-one relationship with Bitcoin on the main chain. And again, I'm very biased. I am with a swap service provider, so take this with a grain of salt, but this is how I see regular users using it. More. Use the microphone, please. Thanks.
Just a basic question, is the main advantage that it's just going to be cheaper for the Lightning transactions to use Arc?
It is cheaper the more people use Arc. That's the main advantage. So it's really exactly the opposite of any blockchain. The more transactions join around, the cheaper it gets for everyone. And I want to apply that principle to rebalancing Lightning channels, which is right now a costly action that you're trying hard to avoid, whereas you shouldn't. You should embrace it and make it native. And in my opinion, Arc is the perfect layer to do that.
Hi there. Thanks. I follow your narrative. Quite interesting. 2 questions. We now know in scaling the Lightning Network that it's not possible for every human to participate. So this will solve that solution.
In a way it does, because it does not require endless scaling of Lightning itself. It just requires the professional operators to do their job well. And regular users can participate from any other layer that exists now or will exist in the future that can participate in the Lightning Network via the method that I just highlighted before. So yes, in a way it solves it by outsourcing the actual scaling issue to another layer where the users can enter from.
Yeah, so I think it is a way, it's interesting. And I think it happens a lot in society that you get this sort of like professional solution for something. And of course that brings, like if you go further into time, other problems. So maybe in the future also these professional solutions have some sort of decentralization in them.
So that is the downside. So professionalizing something always means fewer entities. There will be less entities operating all of that. But in my opinion, that is okay. So we do not need perfect decentralization on the higher levels and the higher layers. So for Arc itself, I didn't mention that now because it's not a technical talk, but Arc itself has pretty high liquidity requirements. So you need a lot of coin to operate an Arc. That, by definition, narrows down the circle of entities that actually can afford to run this. So Arcs, we will not have thousands of Arcs in the world. We might have only 20, 15, but that is okay.
So-
For Lightning nodes, it's the same. We might not have 5,000 Lightning nodes in the future. We might only have 100, yeah, and that is okay.
So if I would go down the line, I would be able to stake my coins, like on an Arc service provider, something like this, for a fee.
That's something totally separate. So if you want to reuse your coin to put it into an Arc to...
Like if you need a lot of liquidity, I can provide liquidity to an Arc service provider to...
There's ideation about it, but that's really specific to Arc. But there's some ideation about it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I just got a signal. I have to stop. Thank you.